Hello and good evening. So this is a conversation that I know I have incorporated into other videos, but I don't think I've done one specifically on the first 6 seals. The reason I want to go through this is to help anyone who has questions about the timing of them understand a bit more, specifically as regards those who might believe in like a pre-wrath type rapture scenario, or who just aren't sure about the layout of the 70th week. And there are 4 points in Scripture. Actually 5 that I'm thinking of right off of the bat that help us understand how the seal judgments work. In Revelation 6, where the seal judgments are actually listed, seals 1 through 6, there's a verse that tells us, which is backed up by Jesus's words in Matthew 24. This is also explained as part of a process. The beginning stages as part of a process in 1 Thessalonians 5. What that process is explained explicitly in Revelation 12. And then there are also Old Testament references. Also, I'm not sure off the top of my head where they are. I'm not going to get into it, but I know that it is discussed in the Old Testament also. Talking about like it were with child we brought forth wind, talking about the labor pains and the process to bring forth the child, which is the travail, sorrows, birth pangs, that kind of thing. So obviously it's going to be talked about in the Old Testament also, because in the books of prophecy, that is obviously a significant prophecy, meaning the 70th week. So the seal judgments. This is something that I have, the thought process that I have talked about with regard to this, the way that I interpret these scriptures has met with a little bit of resistance, and I don't honestly even really know why, because it's not really something that needs to be contentious. The midpoint of the week is part and parcel with the 7th trumpet. And then the second half of the week is the vial judgments. The seal judgments are a bit different. And I have talked about this recently, how they are a program overview. They are not isolated incidences that are scattered throughout, obviously in sequence, like talking about the trumpets, they're sequential, but they're precise point in times throughout the first 3.5 years. The vial judgments are obviously sequential, 1 through 7. But they're not all at once. They're throughout the the last 3.5 years, up to, vial 6, which gathers the kings of the east to Armageddon. So obviously we know that comes at the end, whereas the mark of the beast, the noisome grievous sword that targets those who took the mark of the beast, worship the image of the beast, or worship the beast, specifically about the mark of the beast, that's going to come right after they do it, which is midpoint of the week. So we obviously know that there's a progression of events, that they aren't all at once, that they are 7 that are spaced out through 3.5 years. The trumpets and the vials work the same way. They just aren't in the same halves of the 70th week. The trumpets are spaced out. And it kind of stands to reason. You have 3.5 years divided by 7 judgments. That would be one every, never mind. I was like 3.5 divided by 7 is 0.5. So like every half a year, it would make sense to have a judgment. Just off the top of my head, it's kind of the first time I thought of that, but 3.5 divided by 7 would be 0.5. So it would make sense why the 5th trumpet is a 5-month judgment. For the space of 5 months, they are tormented with the stings of these scorpion-like locusts, but they can't be killed. So more than likely, you're going to have every 5 months a judgment, and then the midpoint of the week, and then every 5 months a judgment, and then the end of the 70th week, and then Jesus comes back. Just kind of off the top of my head, that makes sense. But the seal judgments are a little bit different. How do I mean? Well, they're a program overview. They aren't something that's going to happen and then followed up by talking about the trumpet judgments. That's something that, like the first one is, what is the first one? In Revelation 8. First angel sounded, there was blood, there was hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. The third part of the trees was burned up, and all the green grass was burnt up. So that's it's an isolated thing. It's going to have ramifications that last, but it's a one-time thing. And then there's another one-time thing, and then there's another one-time thing. The ramifications, again, might be felt, but it's just a one and done type thing. The seals are different. Throughout the whole of, like, when I say the seals are different, it's not like there's going to be hail and fire mingled with blood being cast upon the earth and a third part of the trees. It's not going to be a recurrent thing. It's a one-time thing that produces a specific result. It's not like there are continuous things that are happening that produce 1/3 of the green grass being burned up. There's one thing that happens, and that's the result of it is the third of the green grass is burned up. The green grass is not going to grow back. That judgment kills for good a third of the green grass. And then the trumpet judgment, the second one, the second angel sounded, and it were as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. A third part of the sea became as blood. It's not like that's going to be reversed. It's going to be, when that happens, a third part of the sea is blood, and then it's going to continue to be blood until such a time as the vial judgment, which turns all the sea to blood, occurs, and then it will move from 1/3 of the sea to all of the sea. I hope you understand what I mean with that, is that those are not recurring events. It's going to be a one-time thing. It will produce a result, and then that's that, and then on to the next. The seal judgments are different. It's a one-time thing, but its ramifications will be from the beginning, day 1, through the end, day 2,520. The first of which is the rider on the white horse, the Antichrist, the one who comes in the place of Christ. He's not only there for part of it, he's there for all of it. And then you have seal 2 is the rider on the red horse, given a great sword, given the power to take peace from the earth. From the very beginning through the very end, the entire 2,520 days, you're going to have peaceless conditions. And then famine, same thing with that. From the very beginning through the very end, you're going to have famine conditions. You're going to have the rider on the pale horse, people dying in an unsaved state. The rider on the pale horse, death, and Hades or hell followed with him. That tells you that the people who die under that seal, which is a conglomeration of peace being taken from the earth, famine, and then you also have plague and pestilence. So like pandemic conditions. And no doctors to give you reprieve. People are going to die. 25% of the world are going to die. So between seals 2, 3, and 4, 25% of the world is going to die. And then obviously you have martyrdom from the very beginning, because you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that people are going to understand the times that they are in as soon as the rapture happens and as soon as the 70th week starts. 144,000 are proof enough of that, but obviously they are going to be spared from dying because they're going to be sealed and set apart for a specific purpose. So they're not part of the ones who will die under seal 5. But surely you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there will be people who understand immediately what is going on, and they give their lives to Christ and will subsequently die for that at some point during the 70th week. Seal 5, people are going to be dying from day 1 through day 2,520. And then natural disaster, seal 6. You have something that occurs with the opening of seal 6, and then you have something that occurs natural disaster related after the opening of seal 7. And then part and parcel with the sounding of trumpet 7, and also with the pouring out of vial 7. So from day 1 through day 2,520. So to me, this isn't difficult to understand because I look at it as like a program overview, is for the entirety of the 70th week. In addition to the trumpet judgments and in addition to the vial judgments, you have all of these conditions that have been created by the opening of the seals going the entire time period. So it's not just the trumpet judgments, it's the ramifications of the opening of the seals going on alongside the trumpet judgments. And it's the ramifications of the seal judgments going alongside the vial judgments also. Because again, the Antichrist, there the whole time. There's going to be no peace at all during the whole time. There's going to be famine and pestilence and death and plague and martyrdom the whole time. So the seals are going to be conditions that persist through the entire thing, not just isolated incidences like the trumpets and like the vials. You'll have the seals going on with implications being felt throughout the entire time period alongside all of the other things that are going on. Now, the part where I seem to kind of lose people on this is that I believe that Scripture tells us that all of the seals will be opened on day one. Obviously, we know this with the rider on the white horse. But these are not staggered things. And by necessity, they can't be, because speaking of the logistics of opening this sealed scroll, which we learn about in Revelation 5, and we see opened fully amidst the sixth trumpet judgment, is think about order of operations. Unseal 7, unroll, read the writing within, flip it over, read the writing on the backside. And that is what we're told. So there's an order of operations, and there's a reason why the book of Revelation says seals 1 through 7, then trumpets 1 through 7, then vials 1 through 7. It's an order of operations. It's our orderly God's way of judging. So the seals all have to be opened first before you can read the writing within and on the backside of the 7 seal scroll, because you're not going to be able to read the writing if it's not unrolled, and you can't unroll it if it's still sealed. So these are just logical thoughts here. Now, again, where I kind of lose people is with the fact that I believe Scripture supports that all of the seals are open on day one. Why couldn't they be staggered throughout the first half? Well, the trumpet judgments end in the midpoint of the week. And I just did a video recently going through Revelation 10 to help us understand it. It's called something about the layout of the 70th week, something to that effect. But it focuses a great deal on Revelation 10 and how Revelation 10 is really a pivotal chapter in understanding that it's seals day one, they're opened, and then it's trumpets through the first half, and then it's vials through the last half. Oh, it was something about the layout of the 70 week as pertains to the wrath of God, because I had come across a statement where somebody believes that the wrath of God as pertains to the vials only comes in the last few weeks or few months of the 70th week. And I'm like, no, that is not true. It would make absolutely no sense for it to be called the time of trouble, Jacob's trouble. Jesus and Daniel both tell us that it will be an unparalleled time of trouble, such as was never once since the beginning of the world to the same time, no nor shall ever be. You can't honestly think that that's only going to last a few weeks or a few months. No, it's going to last 3.5 years. And it doesn't help us to impress upon people the severity of that by telling them it's only going to be a short amount of time. No, let's be realistic about it. It's going to be 3.5 years, and that's why it's called the worst time in human history, unparalleled. And we should be uber glad we're not going through it. But the seals are, again, this program overview. They describe things that will be happening from the very beginning through the very end, alongside the trumpets and alongside the vials. They are unleashing conditions that will persist through the entirety of the week. And so in Revelation 6, we shouldn't be surprised that it tells us that they all occur on day one. They do. And this specifically mirrors language from the Olivet Discourse in Matthew 24. I apologize, it's getting dark. I have a light on, but sorry. But this specifically mirrors language from the Olivet Discourse that Jesus specifically spoke in Matthew 24. And he says the exact same thing that John the Revelator says in Revelation 6. So, Revelation 6:1. Hi, Daniel. Welcome. Nice to see you. Revelation 6:1. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse. He that sat on him had a bow. That bow is symbolic of the Daniel 9:27 covenant. So this is how we know that the 70th week is started. That's important to understand because we are going to be told that everything else in this chapter is a collective day one event. The opening of these is a collective day one event. It's sequential, 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6. But every single one of them comprises the a one day event. You'll see what I mean. So he had a bow. That's the Daniel 9:27 covenant. A crown was given unto him. He went forth conquering and to conquer. When he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." There went out another horse that was red. Power was given unto him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. I'm actually going to read Matthew 24 alongside this so that you can see that these mirror one another. So the Daniel 9:27 covenant that starts the week, this is Daniel 9:27. He shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, period of 7 years. In the midst of the week, he shall cause the sacrifice, the oblation to cease. For the overspreading of abominations, he shall make it desolate until the consummation that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. In other words, the desolator is judged. So Matthew 24, Jesus says the same thing. His disciples come to him privately on the Mount of Olives, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be? When? 70th week. And what shall be the sign of thy coming and at the end of the world?" So they're asking for the times and seasons, which is the 70th week and the second coming. So he starts with the beginning of the 70th week, mirroring Revelation 6. Jesus answered and said unto them, "Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many." Seal 1. "You shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, for the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom." There's seal 2. What's seal 3? When he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see that thou hurt not the oil and the wine." Going back to Matthew 24, "And there shall be famines." Okay, seal 3. Go back to Revelation. What's seal 4? I heard a voice, when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast saying, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death. So the ramifications of the opening of seals 2, 3, and 4 are that 25% of the world is going to die from the sword, which is taking peace from the earth, from famines, and from pestilence and plague, which is pestilence and wild beasts. That would be like your pandemic. There's going to be a pandemic that's way worse than the one going on now. That's basically what seal 4 is all about. So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him. That means that everyone that dies as a result of seals 2, 3, and 4 is going to die in an unsaved state. Hell follows. That's the Hades, the abode of departed spirits, which are not do not belong to people that were saved by God through belief in Christ. Power was given unto him over the fourth part of the earth to kill with sword, seal 2, hunger, seal 3, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. Go back to Matthew 4, and pestilences. So Jesus and John are talking about the same sequence of events, the opening of the seals. Jesus is answering the disciples. When shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So he is telling them that the countdown to his arrival at the second coming begins with the opening of the seal judgments, as John is revealing also in Revelation 6. Hi, Joseph. Welcome. So continuing on. When he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. Okay, so this is a departure from the first 4 seals that we saw, because those are going to impact non-saved people, or the death that results from the opening of seals 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 impact unsaved people, as was witnessed by the pale horse rider, death, and hell followed. So that indicates that the people who die as a result of those, it's talking specifically about unsaved people. The departure from that is seal 5, which talks about saved people only, the martyrdom. When he had opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. They cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? White robes were given unto them, to every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren that should be killed as they were should be fulfilled. That is not actually mentioned in Matthew 24. So we go on to the 6th seal, and it says, And I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. The stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind. The heaven departed as a scroll, and it is rolled together, and every island and mountain were moved out of their places. Go back to Matthew 24, and earthquakes in diverse places. So Jesus is telling them that the start of the period of time that leads to the second coming with discernible signs of the times, is related specifically to the opening of the seals, which begin the 70th week, as discussed in Revelation 6. So what does Revelation 6 say after this? That they all happen on day 1. The kings of the earth. This is the reaction of everyone on earth to the opening of the first 6 seals. What is that reaction? Again, collective event. They're sequential, but it is a collective event. Boom, 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 boom. Day 1. And so people, on account of these things having been unleashed, what is their reaction? The kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and the rocks and the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? This means that it is come, that the 70th week has started. When the first 6 seals are opened, people understand this, and they say the great day of wrath is come, means has started, which is mirrored by Jesus in Matthew 24. Seals 1 through 6, seals 1 through 4 and 6, as discussed in Matthew 24, 4 through 7, verse 8. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Day 1, beginning. When you look at point A and point B, a beginning and an end, your beginning is point A. I don't know why this is so disputed that people would be able to reason through seals being opened on day 1, but they are, because we have 2 places which mirror each other that say the great day of his wrath is come. Following the opening of seals 1 through 6, is come means has started. Mirrored in Matthew 24, 8, all these, seals 1 through 6, are the beginning of sorrows. So something has commenced when seals 1 through 6 are open, which is the 70th week. Sorrows, birth pangs, travail upon a woman with child. The third place where this is referenced is 1 Thessalonians 5. But of the times and seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. Specifically, the church at Thessalonica, because they are not going to be alive to go through this period of time, because they are believers in Jesus Christ. So he doesn't need to tell them the specifics of a time period that isn't going to affect them, because they're not going to be there. And then he explains why he doesn't need to write to them. It's not that they don't need to know, it's that he's not specifically going to write to them with the details about a time period that doesn't apply to them. So then he's going to explain to them why it doesn't apply to them, why he doesn't have a need to write to them. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. That's a reference to the second coming. Thief in the night, second coming. Now, are they of the night to where it would apply to them? No. For when the people to whom it does apply say peace and safety, commencement of the 70th week, then Upon commencement of the 70th week, sudden destruction cometh upon them as what? Travail upon a woman with child. All these are the beginning of sorrows, birth pangs. Sorrows, birth pangs, travail upon a woman with child. Same thing. So Jesus says in Matthew 24 that seals 1 through 6 are the beginning of sorrows. Paul in 1 Thessalonians says, when they say peace and safety to denote the beginning of the 70th week, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape, which is exactly what John says in Revelation. The rich men, the kings, the free men, the poor men, the bondmen hid themselves, the dens, the mountains, and rocks, and said to the mountains and rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, for the wrath of the Lamb, for the great day of his wrath has started. Who shall be able to stand? They are hiding because they want to escape and they cannot. So Matthew 24, 4 through 8, Revelation 6, the whole of the chapter, and 1 Thessalonians 5, 1 through 3 all say the same thing. The seal judgments start on day 1. They also end on day 1. And they indicate the commencement of the 70th week. Sure, they're sequential. 1 comes first and 7 comes last. But every single one of them occurs on day 1 to indicate conditions that will persist through the whole of the 70th week. For when they shall say, the people to whom it does apply, which is not the church at Thessalonica, when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, sorrow, birth pangs, and they shall not escape. But Lord knows they're going to want to, which is why they're pleading with him to let them escape in Revelation 6. But ye, brethren, are not of the darkness, you're not of the night, that day should overtake you as a thief. You're children of the light, children of the day. You're not of the night nor of darkness. So the thief in the night can legitimately not apply to anyone who is saved in Jesus, saved by the grace of God, because we're of the light and of the day. The thief in the night does not apply to people who are of the light and of the day. It applies to those who are not saved, classified as of the night, of the darkness. So the seal judgments. Examining the first 6 seals. They're day 1. They're day 1. And it really should not be a hardship to understand this. I mean, it doesn't really impact us one way or the other because we're not going to be here. But they're not first half, they're first day. The trumpets are first half, and the ramifications of the seals will be felt alongside the trumpets. And the vials are second half, and the ramifications of the seals will still be felt alongside the vials. We know this specifically from Revelation 8, where the beast, the Antichrist, is going to be given power to basically tread over everyone to overcome the saints and kill them. So clearly the ramifications of seal 1 are going to be felt very heavily in the second half of the 70th week, save the remnant that has been preserved or protected by God in the wilderness. But the first 6 seals talked about in Revelation 6, the whole chapter, Matthew 24, verses 4 through 8. And we know that they don't run the course, they aren't opened throughout the course of the first half, because a few verses later so that's Matthew 24, 4 through 8 is talking about the seal judgments and them being a day 1 event, beginning of sorrows. So beginning means starting point, or means day 1. And then 6 verses later in Matthew 24, 14, you have trumpet 7, which is the preaching of the everlasting gospel worldwide. And then in 15 through 22 details the flight of the remnant, which those things are trumpet 7. So you're, got nothing to do with the seals at all. You're well into the end of the trumpets at that point. So it's laid out very specifically, very orderly. Seals day 1, trumpets, obviously day 1 or day 2 through day 1260, and then vials day 1261 through 2520, and then Jesus comes back. It's all very simple, but the seal judgments are not over the course of time, they're over the course of a day. And when they have all been opened, that is the indication to people clearly that the 70th week has commenced. Matthew 24, 8, Revelation 6, 15 through the end of the chapter, and 1 Thessalonians 5, 3. And if you really aren't sure about that whole travail upon a woman with child, birth pangs, labor pains, because once a woman goes into labor, travail, sorrows, once she starts experiencing labor pains, there's a child on the way. The day count associated with the 70th week, 2,520 days. So once that starts, obviously we know that the return of Christ is at hand, and specifically when it will be at hand. And Revelation 12 talks about the travail and bringing forth the man-child in a different capacity, but the reference is still the same. Daniel, does day one of the seals begin immediately after the rapture? I will actually discuss that in a different video as far as the timing of the rapture and in conjunction with the seals. I started that conversation a little bit earlier talking about what is the rapture, what is the purpose for the rapture. And I didn't really discuss timing too much, just very, very briefly, but I will expand that in a different video, so stay tuned. I will certainly answer that question. But if you do have any other questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer them either in video or in chat. Sorry, this is so dark. But I will see you guys later. Thank you very much for your time being here and or watching this after the fact. I do appreciate you all. So have a great evening.